Welcome to The Good Pod, where today we're talking The Good Wife, Season 2, Episode 16, Great Firewall. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jason Reed. With me, as always, my co-host, Marissa Garza, who thinks everyone does everything for the right reasons. Poor, ignorant little Marissa. That's why we all love you. Marissa.
I'm so naive.
Yeah, Marissa, you good?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, sometimes it's just the easiest way to go through life. You just have to assume that everyone has good intentions. I don't know what Will's talking about here. I mean, it was really disappointing to hear from him, but I'm just going to stay on the sunny side of life while also acknowledging the systemic problems in our world. Both can happen at the same time. You can think people have good intentions while also recognizing that some people don't.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I trust no one and think everyone's out to get me. So great dichotomy of perspectives for this podcast.
Yeah. We're like the yin and the yang.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're in the home stretch, I think, of season 2 of The Good Wife. Big things are happening. We are getting introduced to things on this episode that will last many years in this show. So a lot, really big mythology episode in this episode. And listen, Marissa, it's all been worth it, right?
I know.
Julius and Bond were never on the same episode. We were like, Kings, what's going on? This seems fishy. This seems sus. And this episode, not only did we get Julius and Bond in the same room, in the same scene, they had a lot of scenes together. They did a lot of things together, and to a glorious result. I am so excited to talk about it with you, Marissa. Let's I'm getting too ahead of myself. Before we jump into the case and all this episode I want to talk about, I want to remind all you out there in Good Pod Land how you can support us. A couple free and easy ways. Don't forget you can review, rate, subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen or watch. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a written review. We love those. If you just want to rate us 5 stars, you can do it on Apple or Spotify. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can hit this little thumbs up button down here. We love that. You can also follow us on all of those platforms. We really, really appreciate it. It helps us get into the eyes and the ears of more people. If you just want to chat us up and just talk to us about the show, you can always email us at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. As always, thank you for rating, subscribing, and reviewing.
Yes, we appreciate your support in all of the ways it helps us. Yes.
A special shout out. Special shout out to one of our reviewers who I called out on our last episode and said, listen, this person complained that we said interesting too much. And I challenged them. I said, if I can stop saying interesting, even for a little bit, you got to change your review to 5 stars. Now, behind the scenes, the episode where last week's episode didn't even come out before this person, Llama9342, changed their review to 5 stars.
Love it.
Didn't change the title or anything. It still says interesting. It says here for the Good Wife recast because it's my comfort rewatch show. Generally enjoying, but I'm getting annoyed at how often detailed an episode is described as interesting. Llama, thank you so much for changing your review to 5 stars.
Yes, love the love, Llama. Thank you so much.
And listen, it's a work in progress for me to get interesting out of my vocabulary, but it's the show's so interesting. What am I supposed to do, Marissa? What do I have to do?
Just be you, Jason. Just be you.
But the show is interesting. I gotta look. I gotta get my thesaurus out to get more words that are synonymous with interesting,
fascinating,
enjoyable. Let me look up synonyms. Hold on. Let's do this live. Synonyms for interesting. Intriguing.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Absorbing.
one.
Appealing.
Okay.
Attractive. Compelling. Engaging. Gripping. Stimulating. I'm gonna try those.
You got some options.
Yeah.
You got options. Well, Jason, we, like you said, are at a pretty important point in the lore of the Kingverse. This case of the week has to do with a company that was, I think, mentioned once, but this is the first time we are really working with them. This is Chum Hum, the Google of the King verse, basically. I don't know why they called it Chum Hum every single time. Like, it makes me laugh like every single time.
Isn't it? We didn't really get into it this time. Isn't their mascot like a beaver or something? If I
Yes,
remember
yeah,
correctly.
it's really silly.
Yeah, we will hear from Chum Hum several more times throughout the Good Wife lore. We will be working with them sometimes. We're working against them other times. But yeah, Chum Hum has a spot in the Good Wife lore for sure.
Yes. And in this instance, our heroes, Gardner and Lockhart and Bond, are working with Shen Yuan Jen Yan,
Sure.
Chen Yuan, who is suing Chum Hum because he was, turned in and tortured in China. Basically, the whole thing was like he sent this blog post to his friend in Chicago, thinking that it could be anonymous. Oh, Chen, never trust the internet.
I mean,
Thinking
listen, it was
that
2000. It was
it was, it
2011.
was,
Like we didn't.
it was. We had more
We were still kind of.
protections.
Well, I mean, we were still kind of in the mainstream internet infancy in
Yeah.
2011. We had no idea what we were doing in those times. I mean, some people did. I certainly didn't, but some people did. Marissa, you probably were all over it. Like you were probably like, don't trust the cops, don't trust the internet.
I mean, we also did have like more. There was more protection on the internet then than there is now. A lot of stuff has been taken away, so it's not preposterous, but just like thinking back, like looking back, the fact that thinking that you can remain anonymous on the internet, and then also thinking that democracy would come to China, like this was a little like this. You could totally see as data. Given our current state of our democracy, like I really don't think that we are the democracy light
Poster
of the
child.
world at the moment.
Yeah, we're not the poster child for democracy in this day and age right now.
That's kind of weird.
Looking for how to do it? Look elsewhere, not here.
Yeah. So basically, Shen was like, "Hey, I wouldn't have been turned in if Chum Hum didn't turn my IP address over to the police." And this is something that is talked about a lot, especially when it comes to the internet in China. The internet is very locked down. They will find people. They will use that as information. And if you are an American company in China and get asked for information, you have to follow the law and give the information over. Although you can maybe make a protest move here, which is kind of what like Will and Diane are trying to get at. And on the other side of the table is our good friend Viola, played by Rita Wilson. She's back. And what do we know about her since the last time she showed up here? That she was dropped by Peter Edelstein, the Mark Zuckerberg of this world. Yeah. So she's there. She's playing it cool. She's like, "Hey, I'll give you $20 million and agree not to turn anyone else in." And they're like, "What do you have? Like, why are you coming to us like this?" This will continue to play out. But then there's like this really interesting, I don't know, interaction. I did not like this interaction between Viola and Alicia, because Alicia had been earlier like putting those little sign here tabs on documents, and one of those sign here tabs ended up on her rear end, and Rita was like, "I have a pen, do you want me to sign it?" I was like, what? Why are we what?
It was so mean girlish.
Yeah.
Like, what are we in high school? Like just tell me, hey, you have something on your behind there, you want to like make sure you get that. I'm like, oh, you want me to sign it? Shut up, Viola. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Why? Like, I was not sure what to think of this. Is this just another moment for us to be like, hey, Viola, we don't like Viola, right? Like, Viola sucks.
Maybe. Or like, was she trying to get into Alicia wasn't really like doing anything. It's not that she wasn't doing anything on this case, but this wasn't her case. Like this was not like a reason to get into Alicia's head. You know what I mean? Like this wasn't one of those plays. So I just think this was like unneeded, but also to remind us that yes, we probably don't like Viola. Mm-hmm. Or she's still mad, at least. Kalinda, of course, is put on the case. They are going to argue, like they think that Viola is going to argue that Chum Hum didn't know the result of what turning in this IP address would be. They didn't know he'd be tortured, so don't hold them at fault for it. So go find any public statements about China, anything that Chum Hum has done. Kalinda's like, yeah, I got it. Meanwhile, she decides to give a change of address card. She has moved. She has done all this stuff and gives a change of address card to Alicia, to which Alicia's like, "Oh my gosh, that's so nice."
Like Alicia, of course, making it all about her. This happens again in this episode where Kalinda's giving out a change of address form. Is this going to come into play later? What do we think is? behind this?
Well, we have not seen Blake since the hotel situation, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if she feels a little, I don't know if she feels for her safety, like her safety's in danger, because why would you be handing out change of address cards if you didn't want people to know where you are? But I think
But just
it
in
might be
general,
connected.
it's not about the fact that she moved. I think in general it's the fact that this is not a Kalinda thing to do.
Yeah,
Like
this is not a Kalinda thing.
Kalinda doesn't go giving out change of address forms if she's
Well,
getting, and isn't that so weird? Also, who does that? Who I've never heard of anyone giving a change. I've never even heard of a change of address notification. It just seems like
yes, Jason.
it seems like such a '90s thing of like,
It
I
was.
I can't text you my address because we don't have that yet. So I'm going to give you this change of address card. Like it seems like in 2011, I would just text them and be like, "Hey, this is my new address. Remember it." It seems I don't
Well,
know. The Kings are stuck in the '90s in this moment of like, "Hey, remember these change of address cards we hand out?" I'm like, okay, that was weird.
I do think that like Kalinda is trying to rally the troops here. She does know that there's an investigation going on. So I think she's trying to just like remind people of these personal connections she has with people. Also, we never found out like what that phone call was the last episode with that guy who was calling, who's just like, if they give me
Hmm.
a number,
Yeah,
I'll
something
call
weird.
back. So something weird's going on.
I feel like we've got a shoe ready to drop about Kalinda in any of these episodes
Yeah.
before the finale, and I think this change of address thing is going to be one of them. Is she trying to get this address out there? This is a trap for someone to like. If you come to this address, I'm gonna be waiting for you with a gun or something. I
Well,
don't know. I don't know. Is she trying to get the fact that she's moving out into the ether of like, hey, this is my new address, so come get it if you want it. Like, you're going to be walking to a trap if you do. I don't know. I'm curious to see where this is going to lead to later. Because I feel like this might be a later thing we're going to find out about.
it did bait someone to come and visit her, which we will talk about later, but
L- Let me tell you,
it did
it's very
work.
it's very compelling that this is happening with Kalinda
Nice.
right now. Yeah,
Nice. Now, back at the law firm, they are going to go through a deposition with Neil Gross or Neil Gross, who is the
gross,
CEO.
gross,
Neil Gross? Gross.
gross,
Gross. Which is it? Gross?
gross. It's gross. You're the
Gross.
one saying
Oh.
gross. I'm not. I'm not coming across with the gross. It's gross. Like Neil is gross.
Neil Gross. Neil is gross. Yeah. Okay. So Neil Gross is the CEO of Chum Hum, and he is now being deposed. He's like, "Hey, we were forced to do this because of the laws in China. Like that is who we are. That's what we had to do." And Will is asking him, like, "Isn't your motto first do no wrong?" Okay. Back in the old days of the internet, when Google first came out, Google's literal motto was "do no evil."
Oh
That
man,
was
you never want to make your motto something that is so easily just, I don't know, easy to twist. Like, well, if you have no evil, what about this or this or this? You don't want to ever make your motto. You don't want to ever shoot that high as your motto because you're going to inevitably do something that someone's going to find evil and be like, "See, you said you were this and you're not that." You never want
yeah.
to do that.
Let me just tell you that is not their motto anymore. They have
Yeah,
definitely
I
changed
bet.
some things. Most recently, they have said that they will not use or they are not against using AI for weaponization. So,
I
you
mean,
just
it's
want
like
to like
Pride Month off their calendar. It's like, wow,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, Pride Month, Black History Month, all of the months, like watch out October, they're going to come for you. I don't know. But
October's a dead month. I know that because my birthday's in October. No one celebrates
oh,
October.
well, that's when I'll play the French horn. Yeah. So this was like them definitely telling us like this is who we are talking about in this episode. Think Google. And his whole thing is like this is very Elon Musk of the now times, like wrong is best avoided being in the open, having like free speech, all of this stuff. But
I
like
mean, and
it
and
doesn't
and
work that
Gross
way.
and Gross is also being obtuse too because he almost kind of likens Shen to a. He's like, what if a child pornographer was
Yeah.
doing this in the U.S.? I would have to turn them in too. Like, this is not the same
It's
thing.
not the
The
same.
guy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And again, he, says we had no foreknowledge that this would be the result. I do like Will's line of questioning here. I do enjoy Will's entire line of questioning in this deposition and others because he's like, yeah, tell me, teach me, like tell me something I don't know. But he does ask, like, he asks Neil, right, how old are you? Why? Because this is a deposition and I'm asking you a question. Oh, okay. I'm 40 something. Well, why do you wear a hoodie?
Oh man, really, it really is like, also shot at me. I was like, oh, okay, like people of a certain age can't wear hoodies. Like so wrong. All of a sudden, I'm not 50 yet, but like I was like, okay, like that's kind of a shot
Yeah.
to me indirectly.
Wear comfortable clothes. You can wear whatever you want, but I think like you can wear whatever you want when you are like a billionaire, millionaire. I don't think it's something that needs to, but it was definitely like a little dig at the Silicon Valley CEOs
Yeah.
who at the time were a little unorthodox for their hoodie wearing. He also tells Will like, "Hey, we might have turned up not more than 50 people. So like I don't know why this is like a big deal." And they do, educate the audience here by saying like if the US government wants to stop this from happening, they can stop people from doing business in China. But we are the light of democracy. And so,
Mhm.
like, we have to go forward with this. And Will says, yeah, we also owe China $830 billion.
Yeah.
So by
That
paying
could also
taxes
have
by
something to
doing
do with
business
it.
there, yeah,
Yeah.
it could have something to do with it. Alicia does find that Neil did write a paper about Tibetan activists in college, so he does have sympathy for this for Shen in this
This is
situation.
it's such a funny moment because Alicia like hands Will a paper like, here you go, babe. Get him with this. Get him with that. Will's like, oh, interesting. You wrote a paper. Like you got him, babe. Get him. Here's some ammunition. You got him.
Yeah, it was funny. So Shen is like having kind of like a PTSD response at this moment because he had heard a phone ring and he tells Alicia like, "Hey, the guard who waterboarded me had the same cell phone ring," and it just like puts me back there. And what I'm
Yeah,
really worried, yeah,
I mean, because Shen had been telling us that he was in a prison camp for like what 5 years, just being constantly tortured and
yeah,
so much bad stuff was happening. That's the impetus for him to sue Chum Hum, Chum Hum. So yeah, he kind of recounts why he got up and was so panicked in the moment. I thought he was upset because he'd heard that more than 50 people had
me
been
too.
done wrong by Neil Gross. And he's like, oh no, like the ringing was just getting to me. I was like, oh, interesting. Oh,
Well,
compelling. I meant to say,
don't make compelling. You're new interesting. You gotta.
intriguing. Maybe I should
There you
say.
go. There you
Yeah,
go.
there
There
you
you go. He does also this worries him because he's like, if I'm having this reaction, like, I'm afraid that they're just going to offer money to shut this up and like not stop doing this. So there's going to be more people like me if this doesn't continue or if this continues. At this point, Viola comes back with an $865,000 offer
go.
and
Sheesh.
says there's no punitive, meaning there's no way that Chum Hum actually injured this man's life, did anything bad here. And Will keeps asking, like, what do you have? Like, what's going on? And so they hypothesize that the next move here is going to be that Viola is going to argue that there was no torture.
Yeah, they're like, why are you so confident that you think you can give us this low ball offer? What secret weapon do you have in the back of your pocket?
Yeah. In the middle of all this, following back up on the Kalinda has moved situation, Carrie stops by Kalinda's new
Hey,
building.
hey, Kalinda, what's up? Like, just kind
And
of pops up on her. Like, oh, okay, you've been waiting
yeah,
outside my new apartment building. Cool.
yeah. And he's like, hey, a grand jury is going to be impaneled for you. She's like, when? Next week. Why? Like, I shouldn't be telling you this. You do it. I can't do
I
it.
I shouldn't even be here telling you this. Like I can't like she basically asked like, are you gonna help me? Or gonna he's like, I shouldn't even be doing this. Like I just don't I don't even know. I don't even know, babe. Like he might as well have said, babe. I don't even know, babe. I can't do anything for you. It's like, oh, Carrie.
Yeah. And then there was this interesting conversation where he's like, why did you send me a change of address notice anyway? And she says, I don't know. I'm trying to be normal. And then he goes in for a little smooch and says, welcome back to normal. I had no idea what this was
I
about.
What does it even mean? Welcome back to normal. We were never this. We were never normal. What are you talking about? Kalinda has never been normal. What do you mean,
Well,
Carrie?
especially Kalinda and Carrie have never been
Mhm.
normal. Like they've always
Yeah.
been like a little offbeat. Yeah, so I was like, okay, you could have just kissed her without saying this, but okay, whatever.
He thought he was being cool. And the look Kalinda gives afterwards, just like I don't even know what that was. Kalinda's as confused as we are.
Yes, agreed. I do want to mention an email we got from Jang, who had some thoughts about Kalinda, Jason, that I thought we could talk about. She wrote in
Yep.
and said, I think Kalinda is loyal to the people closest to her, but also vindictive when provoked. I think it stinks for her using her personal relationships, such as with the FBI agent Delaney, played by Jill Flint, or Officer Russo, played by Kelly Kiblish. Of course, there
Kelly
are people who Giblish. Giddish. Oh my gosh, names today. Names
names
today.
are not
Giddish.
important.
Kelly Giddish. Of course, there are people who are cheaters too, but it tarnishes my view of Kalinda. I have missed Archie Punjabi, Carrie, and Kalinda forever. Heart. What do we think? Do we think that like this is going to catch up with Kalinda? To Jang's point, all of these things that she's done, not maybe in the most ethical orthodox way, but also, technically within the law. How do you feel about it?
I think it's not no secret that Kalinda uses her friends. I think even her friends kind of know that. And Kalinda, for some reason, is so irresistible that her friends know that she's using them, but they still willingly go into. They're like it's like a moth to light. They still willingly go there, even though it's like this is might hurt me, but I'm gonna go there anyway. So yes, will it come back to bite her? Probably. Especially we saw what was that lady's name? Was it no, it wasn't Diane. It was the lady that talked to Blake that was Kalinda's former lover.
Oh, yeah,
I forgot
the
what her name
lady
was.
who they were like kissed at the bar.
Yeah, I forgot her name was, but that's kind of a prime example of people that Kalinda uses who at some point may be like, oh, I feel like I was used by Kalinda. Let me snitch on Kalinda or whatever to Kalinda. I feel like Kalinda hasn't gotten that many of those people in her life to that are willing to turn on her, but I think eventually that will happen.
Yeah, I think for some people she returns the favor, for others she doesn't, and those that she doesn't are the ones she has to worry about.
Yeah, I'm sure there are
So,
tons of people that feel burned by Kalinda in one way or another. I mean, take that hot cop we used to see a lot back in season one, who just disappeared off the face of the earth.
yeah.
He felt burned by Kalinda, and who knows who's to say that he wouldn't do anything to hurt Kalinda
What
in a
if
professional way at some point.
what if he's part of the pan or part of the case, the
What if the
investigation?
what if the hot cop is the guy that's been calling and not returning
Oh,
calls?
oh
Ooh,
my
interesting.
gosh. So many what ifs. So yes, we will see what's going on with Kalinda. Back at the case, Viola has added a new witness, Jason. None other than Shen's wife. What?
Dun, dun,
What?
dun.
Turns out that she left him after he was let out of prison. They came to America and she left, which can happen. Like multiple things here can impact a marriage. The fact that you went to prison and came back, the fact that you moved to a whole nother country.
5 years.
Yeah.
Part of my Marvel comic book brain kicks in when I think about something like this because
The
in
snap.
the snap for nerds like me that have watched these movies, you get the snap where the villain Thanos vanished half the population for 5 years. I've always wanted some follow-up show or some follow-up something to talk about normal people and their experience coming back to life after 5 years away and
Yeah.
how that affected people and their marriages and their families and how like 1 minute my husband has been snapped out of existence. I, got all of my life. I met a new man. I married him. I had a kid, and then next thing you know, he's back. Like,
Well,
and what does that? What happens then?
yeah, and like grieved his death and like put
Yeah,
and had no answers because there's no body. Like there's a lot there
yeah. I always
for
felt Marvel
sure.
dropped the ball by not doing something to that effect. And nerd minute over. But yeah, you got to think it affects you by with your husband's been away for so long, he comes back, things are probably never the same. And I think Shen mentioned that they moved to America, and then a year later she left because
Yeah.
not only does it affect Shen, but it affects his wife and how life can change. We also found out what maybe the impetus might have been for Shen's
Yeah.
wife leaving, which was interesting.
Well, it also caused Jen to do some stuff Two, he ended up cheating on his wife when he joined a
Yeah.
free Tibet movement. I did, it's always interesting when this is brought up in front of Alicia, like because
Uh-huh.
of her situation. Diana's just like, man, you run into it everywhere. Like it's a virus. She's just like cheating. Man, you run into it anywhere. And this kind of really does damage their case because they were kind of trying to put Shen in this like Nelson Mandela type of light of like
Yes.
being altruistic type of prisoner. And you hear Will and Diane say, like, we have to get them to stop these practices in China. Like, that is their
Oh
goal.
my
We don't
god.
have nothing
And
about
listen,
money, but
Alicia, when Will said that in front of Alicia, things happened to Alicia on the inside. She's like, oh my
yes.
god. She's like, oh, she swooned. She literally swooned over Will. She's like, oh, he's so thoughtful. He loves people. He only cares that we get Chum Hum to stop with this bad practice of turning in these people. Oh, Will, he's so nice. He's so kind. I love this man. The way you had to know at that point
Yes.
something was gonna happen for her to change because she was like, oh, you just look at the look on her face, like, oh, okay, Alicia. Like, I thought he was dreamy before, but now he's thoughtful. Oh my god.
Well, and like this is like the core of their like I'm pretty sure their relationship back in Georgetown of like we're in the law to do good. We're going to fight for
Yep.
the, like
The
fight for the little
idealistic,
person,
yeah,
like
the
all this
idealistic
stuff.
version of law,
Yeah.
like, oh, we're gonna do so much good in the world, blah blah blah, and then then the reality sets in.
Well, and I mean, I think Alicia's there a little bit still. I mean, even though she's gotten to learn like what the law is and what the law can do, she's still kind of very naive
Yeah,
in this.
yeah.
But this does like she's like, oh, well, Will, if this is what you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm here,
Mhm.
maybe I can convince Shen to convince his wife to
Which is
recant and
like,
like get back together. Like,
which you would think is so opposite to what Alicia would want to do. Like
yeah,
Alicia, who's been in this position, who's been Shen's wife, is like, you know what?
yeah,
I'm gonna talk her into taking Shen back because
okay,
we're doing it
but
for the right reasons. Will, we're doing this for the right reasons.
Peter and Shen are not the same. But yes,
True, but he still cheated, and
yes,
for
he did.
Alicia, who has been scorned in this similar manner, to be like, I'll convince her to go back to her cheating husband. Like, Alicia, how would you feel if someone's trying to
Yeah,
get you to do the same
yeah,
thing? Which, pretty much Jackie was doing back in the day. Like,
yep.
Alicia, how dare you? How dare you, Alicia?
Yep. And while she is outside trying to convince Shen to do this, who does she see walking in to the office other than Patrick Edelstein?
Dun,
Huh.
dun,
What?
dun.
To which gets her mind going. And also we learn that Alicia cannot use Google. She
Boy,
cannot use the internet. She must use Zach to get to the
I
internet.
was like, Alicia, you're not in your 70s or 80s like our parents. Like, it's not like you can't do a single thing on the internet. You're in your probably 40s. Like, you should be able to use the internet machine
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
not
especially
have your son, Zach, come over here. What can you gaggle Patrick Edelstein for me? Mom, it's Google. It's Google, Mom. Yeah, can you do that for Patrick Edelstein? I want to find out what he's been up to.
yeah, and I mean, Zach has his own storyline going on here, but he is feeling kind
Uh,
of like high and on himself because he's helping his parents. Like he's also like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, I'm doing so much great stuff. We do learn that in this universe, Patrick Edelstein is like the fifth richest guy in the world and is doing business in China. So a direct competitor, Chum Hum, this gets like Alicia's just like, what the frick? Like, I have to go tell Will about this right now. So she goes and she confronts Will and was
I'm gonna
like,
tell my
I don't
baby Will
know.
about it
Yeah. I was like,
because
I don't know.
she did see Edelstein in Will's office talking to Will, so
Yes.
she knows something's up at this
Y-
point.
Yeah. But Will's response is like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
In the
Don't ask me.
guiltiest way you can ever say, he's like, I don't know, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, come on.
And he then like leans in and says, it's a good case, like no matter what. Like
Mm,
whatever our motivations are, we're going to stop this from happening
mm.
in China. And this is where the conversation about like, do you think that people are doing things for the right thing comes into play? And Will's response to this is, who do you know that is doing something for the right thing? Because when you talk to them, you'll find out that they're not. And I just was like, cynical much, Will.
Wow.
Like, you are
Very.
really down in the dark. I mean, I know, like, you're not with Alicia right now, but are you okay?
It felt like a swerve for Will's character to me.
Yes.
It didn't really feel that sentiment didn't feel earned to me
No.
by Will. It just seemed like it seemed like this was his stance for this episode of like, hey, no one does things for the right reasons. I'm like, I feel
Well,
like that wouldn't be a Will thought.
and even more so, the to Alicia when he says, "And if you thought about everything you learned in the past year, you would think this way too." And I was like,
Ooh, yeah.
who are you? Where are you coming from? So yeah, this was a little out of left field for me.
We have seen Will in this similar position before where he has said things for instance, I think about when they defended that lady's rights in the hospital to get a procedure done,
Mm,
where he was more thinking about, yeah, she needs to have this procedure, but this also would be good for a class action lawsuit.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
let's not be too altruistic here. And he's had those moments before in this series, but I don't think he's ever said something like this. Like, no one ever does things for the right reason by themselves, just for the right reason. I'm like, oh, that's a little shitty of you to think. And
yeah,
Alicia, who was looking at Will just the day before in these like idealistic, angelic eyes, like, oh, he's so nice, he's such a good man. For her to hear this from him, you can see in her face, you're just like, oh, you are not the dream guy I thought that I was lusting after for all this
yeah.
time.
Well, and she pushes here too and says, like, okay, if Edelson goes into China, does he turn over the names of people? To which Will responds, "It's the law."
And you can see the kind of
Ugh.
like, that's why I love like Gianna Margulies and Josh Charles and how they play off each other, because you can kind of see the look of guilt in his eyes. You can see he knows he's letting Alicia down in this moment.
Yeah,
He knows that he is like going to be seen as less than in her eyes now, and he feels a certain amount of guilt about it. He's like, it's money, money's money. It's like,
yeah,
oh, oof, yikes.
yeah. He
They
is
both they both look
definitely on
crushed
team
by this.
capitalism.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. They both look crushed by this conversation for different
Yeah.
reasons. So I was like,
Yeah.
wow. Oof. That,
Ugh.
that was that was tense. It was, I feel like, a pretty big moment in the Will Alicia relationship.
Well, especially because they're still like trying to find each other, like trying to find their ways back to working with each other, trying to being with each other ever since the whole like confrontation about what the voicemail was and how Will lied about that. And, you
Yeah.
know, so
We're
they're
still
still trying to find their ground. And Will makes this move, which is not where I thought he would go.
yeah, we're still in the process of trying not to make this weird, and it just got weird again.
Yeah, for sure. So there's one more witness to be brought to the case in the deposition, and that is Paul Houghton of the Bush administration.
And we find out that apparently off screen, Alicia has brokered the reconciliation of Shen and his
Yes,
wife, because they just
yes.
mentioned, oh, the wife is not a witness anymore. She and Shen have got back together. I was like, oh, that was easy.
It's the habits. The habits start here. That like what we were talking about on Elsbeth about how sometimes we don't hear or see the resolutions to things.
Yeah,
This is what happened here.
I think that would have been a really interesting scene to see, though, with Alicia
Yes.
pretty much talking Shen's wife into something that Alicia wouldn't want to do herself at certain points in this series. I think that would have been, sorry, that would have been, let's see here, that would have been gripping to
Oh
see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally would have been gripping. This last witness though is also a direct correlation to real life because I'm pretty sure this is calling out Mike Flynn, or I think it was him.
Hmm.
Someone in the Bush administration did put out a report that basically said waterboarding is not torture, because there was this whole thing that was going on with Afghanistan at the time and we were torturing people and there was like a what is torture conversation, and the thing that they came down is like if there's no organ failure or no permanent damage then you're not torturing someone.
So that's a
And
real Jack Bauer from 24 way of looking at life.
yeah, for real. For real. So they're like, well, when Shin
Basically,
was,
basically like, he's still alive. It's fine. I didn't kill him.
or anything from Scandal or the Blacklist. Yeah, torture people really walk this line. I think here also they're saying, well, because it happened, even though like these things had been revised since then, like in the time of the show is the Obama administration. The Obama administration has a different definition and has, kind of done away with this definition. At the time that Shen was in jail and was quote unquote tortured in the mind of Chum Hum, this was not torture. This could not be defined as torture.
Right.
So now their strategy is, okay, Alicia, get Shen to remember something that happened in 2009 during the Obama administration so it could be called torture.
And Alicia, who just not how many ever hours ago were like, this is wrong for trying to do this for money. She's like, yeah, I'll get him to lie. No problem. Which is what this is. Like, yeah, just tell him to lie. Cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Chum Hum, whose position was, well, we didn't know he was going to be tortured when we snitched on him. To then like, well, actually, he wasn't tortured. We knew things would happen to him, but it wasn't torture. Like
Right.
you can't get us for torture because he was not tortured.
Well, and I think that this whole era was like the time of the politicalization of tech companies. Like for you to say that Chum Hum was not acting in a political way in this situation is incorrect because of what you just said. Like they knew what was going to happen. They did not protect this person nor the other people that they affected by this. And look at how this like little itty bitty thing, this little itty bitty discussion rolls out over the next 20 years. You know what I mean? Now we have tech companies that are doing egregious things to people and their data and stuff like that. So I really liked that the Kings had their ears on the ground at this time and were really able to kind of bring this to light for people, because I think this might have been something that was discussed on the news, but you can't really see how it's being implemented or how it affects really real people until it's in a story like this on The Good Wife.
Totally.
So they settle for $30 million. Neil says that Chicago's a mean place. I mean, we can have good discussions about that, Neil. And talks about, like how things are dead, which is like a whole conversation that was happening around this time on the internet as well. But they end up saying, the offer comes in for $30 million, but they end up settling for no money and agreeing to stop handing over names in China.
Shen's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, yeah, hey. Yes, I definitely wanted them to not give IP addresses anymore, but I mean, I was looking for some cash. Like,
yeah.
I gotta
like I came all the way here. I did all this stuff. I got my wife involved. Like
I don't know why you're so quick to agree to no cash for me. You didn't even consult me. You didn't even go. They weren't even like, we'll talk to our client. They're like, yeah, sure, no money, as long as you guys don't give out any IP addresses. Like, whoa, like I would like to be consulted. I'd like to know that I'm not getting any money, because that's crazy to me. I'm sure coming into the show was like, all I really care about is they don't give IP addresses. But when the reality hits of like, and you're also getting no money, he's like, oh, well, yeah, I would have liked some money.
Or like the knowledge that $30 million was on the table. Like, what?
Yeah, for real. Because, because I think our people came with 30 mil. And because we now got Shen to lie and say that he was tortured when the definition of torture was what was happening to him. And 30 mil, and you stop handing over distant IP addresses. And then Viola's like, how about no money and we stop giving the IP addresses? Because our people were like, wow, that was way too fast. You agreed to that like super fast when before you were refusing to not give IP addresses. And they're just like, China's dead. We're getting out of China. Like, so you guys can have your little moral victory.
It's too protectionist. We can't do our work there. So either way, this was going to happen no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, we went through all of this for what? But
that's what Shen's saying. Shen's like, I went through all this to get no money. Great. Yeah. Fantastic. It's like, I thought you said you were okay with no money. He's like, I said that, but I didn't mean that. Like, that's not what I really meant. Can we still get the 865,000? Like, or what? Like, are we just? I'm just ass out now. I got no money. Gee, Jesus. Like, it's great. Like, it's great. They're not going to give IP addresses anymore. But
a little, like, you could at least take me to lunch.
Yeah, I was looking for a little something. I mean, sheesh. Like,
That was
Shen,
the
you got
case.
back with your wife. We got one of our associates to get you back with your wife. Like, I mean, that's cool and all, but like, I mean, you couldn't get me off a little something, something. And you probably give me a bill for this. You're not gonna invoice me to pay for your services. And I got no money out of it. Oh my God. I'm at a loss. I'm taking losses now.
Yeah,
What
I
can I say?
mean,
I'd be
uh,
mad if I was Shen.
you really have to think about things when you see someone, and
Yeah.
it costs money. It
I'd have been
costs
mad if
money.
I was Shen. I'd have been mad. I'm like, you got me no money. I got nothing. You couldn't get me like 500. You couldn't get me 5,000. They said no money. You were like, cool. I was
Yeah.
I was so shocked at how they were like, yeah, great, no money.
Well, because in their end, their real client here was Patrick Edelstein. They were using Shen
That's
to
true.
move this.
That's true.
So
But
and also at this moment, there's a whole other like legal like a firm war happening. So they need to
yeah,
like really keep.
clear this off the books. We don't got time for this.
Yes, exactly. Well, and also keeping Patrick Edelstein is like key to their moving forward as a firm if
Mhm.
they are able to pull off what they want to pull off. But I feel like, again, this is the founding story of Chum Hum. This is how Chum Hum first comes into play. It is an origin moment for the Kingverse. So one to keep in mind as we're going forward for the rest of the series and into the good. But speaking of that firm war, okay, let's get into it. Derek is worried about 3 votes. He's like, oh my gosh, I don't have the 3 votes. And so, in the middle of the whole Chum Hum thing, Will, Diane, Julius, and David go outside and meet like on the roof in the cold. Like it is freezing cold outside.
Mhm.
And they're standing by like the heat vent where the heat from the building comes out. And they're just like, we need more votes, but we're running out of time. And Julius, I love his dialogue also. He's like, yeah, I have a job.
Yeah, I actually do stuff around here.
Yeah. I loved also in the scene where David was like shooing people away. He's like, this is not a smoking zone. This is a secret zone. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, that was so funny. I said the Lockhart, Bond, and Gardner Avengers are assembling in their
Yes.
little secret hideout.
Yes, exactly. So there's this whole thing about like Julius is going to have to try to turn Fitzpatrick, but Diana's like, "Hey, remember that one time when Stern had these three old guys on the docket or on the payroll so they would just vote? They're still on our payroll, and one died, but 2 are still alive. So why don't we go talk to them and see what's going on?"
Do you
So
know
she
what
was
alter? Do you know what alter knockers mean? Is that what they called them?
like knocker, like you'd vote by knocking on a
Oh,
table.
is that what that means? Because that's what they call Alterkocker is what they called them.
Well, I have no idea.
Alterkocker is a vulgar Yiddish term that means old defecator or old pooper. It used to
Yeah,
describe an old man who was forgetful, clumsy, or inept. It's similar to the phrase old fart.
they kind
Okay.
of were old farts. They kind of
So I guess it kind of fits.
were.
I don't know why Will would say that. I don't know where Will got that from.
It was probably from the phone book, like the phone guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's a king thing, probably.
So Diane goes to meet with the 2 remaining in the gang of 3 of Stern's old farts, and they meet at a diner. This is interesting. They're not very nice people in terms of
Not at
like
all.
how they talk to wait staff or anything like that, but they're playing the game. They're like, we want a corner office, we want a bonus. Diane's like, oh, for next year. They're like, no, for this year. And it's like, oh, you're paying for our wisdom. Like, if you want our votes, we have terms. Like, this is
Yeah,
very
listen,
simple.
they might be altercockers, but they know when they have someone over a barrel and what they can get out of them. So kudos to them for that. Howard at one point calls a waitress a stupid bitch. I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like this is unfortunate. This is terrible. It is just the beginning of the terribleness of Howard Lyman. Howard
Yes.
Lyman also will be a part of, not a huge part, but he'll be a part of goings on down the line in the Good Wife, and it gets insane. Let's just say that.
he's he's a little thorn in the side for a while.
Yeah.
Julius then we see the scene where Julius, first of all, Jason, I know this is your moment. Julius and Bond are first in the same scene, but also we as the viewer are like, what the frick is Julius doing talking to Bond?
Julius, bro, snitching? What are you doing? What are you doing? Julius, I was rocking with you. I was rooting for you. This is what I'm saying.
Rooting for you.
This is what I'm saying as the episode is happening. I'm like, no, Julius, what are you doing, bro? Julius is giving up everything. He's giving all the information that Will and Diane got, like everything that is out there. Julius is just spilling his guts.
Yeah, and I mean, we really haven't seen Julius's like legal prowess other than he knows how to handle like wiretapping at the FBI. Like we haven't seen anything else, but he is making like he has terms.
Yeah.
He has a vote. So he's trying to convince Bond here while telling him like, you think Will's on your side? Will's totally on Diane's side. Like, do not count on that man's vote. I want to vote with you. Like, if you want my vote, I'd give it to you happily. But I want David Lee out, and I also want to become head of litigation. So make that happen. You got my vote. Like that. It's that easy. So he's like that's some prowess that he's showing there.
Julius is looking out for Julius at this point. And honestly, with the way things have transpired between Julius and Will and Diane, I honestly was just like, I believe this. Like in the moment, I was like, yeah, like Julius he has no real love toward Dan and Will, because we remember he was like, you guys keep talking about this minority thing. I think in this episode he mentions like, I want to hear more about the minority hiring process we're going to do. Like y'all haven't said nothing about that since I brought it up. So I think in this moment we're just all like, what? Yeah, I mean, he has no real loyalty to Diane and Will. Like I could see Julius doing this. I don't want Julius to be doing this, but I could see it.
Yeah. Later on, Mr. Lyman, one of the old farts that we were talking about, shows up at the firm, and I just gotta tell you, Josh Charles's physical comedy, A+. So good.
So funny. He's just like, Diane too is like, oh my God, like everyone is just freaking F out. I was like, this is what would happen if Marissa saw Josh Charles out in the wild. She would be like, let me go get them. I need to meet Josh Charles.
Can I tell you about one celebrity sighting that I saw one time?
Please do.
I was at Disney World, and they used to have this thing called...
It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson or something nerdy like that.
No. Well, it is really nerdy, but they used to have what's called Star Wars Day or Star Wars weekends, where for the entire month of May, they would have like Star Wars stars come in, and you could like get their autograph and stuff like that. Disney World. Okay. I happened to be on vacation during Star Wars weekends, walking by all this stuff. I had no idea who was going to be there because I'm like, yeah. I just want to go like ride the rides. Like I have no time for this. But then I look over to my right and I was like, oh my God, it's Warwick Davis. What the frick? And Warwick Davis.
One of the Ewoks?
And also Willow, Jason.
Oh yeah.
Willow. So I like scream, like there was no time between me seeing Warwick Davis and what came out of my mouth. I was just like, it's Warwick Davis. It's Willow. I was like, Lisa, it's Willow.
I feel like if they promised me Star Wars celebrities and I got Warwick Davis, I would be pretty upset.
There were other ones. But this was also like, he was also in Harry Potter and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, he's also in a very funny TV show called Life's Too Short. But anywho, that's how I am with celebrities. Like I have no, like, there's no time.
No chill.
No chill. No chill at all.
I am not a big celebrity guy. I don't need to meet anyone. I don't need anyone's autograph. I'm just like, cool, you did a thing. Like I'm never fanboying out over anyone. Like we go, like, I go to some of these like Survivor live events because I am a RHAP podcaster. I am more happy to meet other podcasters on the network than I am any Survivor players. I'm just like, all right, cool, they play Survivor. Like I'm never going to go up to someone and be like, oh my God, I watched you on Survivor, I thought you did great. Like this is not me. It's not me.
I'm not like that, but when it happens like serendipitously where I'm just like, oh, then I'm like, oh my God, like my brain's just like, ah. But if like I knew I was gonna see people there, I'd be like, that'd be cool. Yeah. That'd be me. Yeah, that'd be me. So while this physical comedy is happening, Bond and Julia, or Bond's looking and it gives like a little heads up to Julius. Like, hey, what's that about? And he's like, I don't know, but I'll go find out. And I was like, oh man, Julius, don't do it.
I'm gonna go find out for you, boss, right away,
Yeah.
right now.
So they take Mr. Lyman outside. Will and Diane are talking to him, and he's like, we got a problem. Merrick died. Like the other guy died. I'm still here and I want everything you promised him, but he died. You're going to have to deal with this. And so now the vote is at a tie, which is not great. At this point, they bring David and Julius back out to kind of tell the news. I do like David's like reaction to this whole thing of like, what fresh hell today?
He is cackling at all this nonsense that's happening.
Like he's right. Like I mean, they did write this because it's a TV show, but like if this were happening in real life, you couldn't write this. Like this is amazing.
I love David again. It's like, get no smoking out here. Go away. David Lee is
this
great
puts all of the
comedy.
pressure. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said David Lee is a great source of comedy, especially in this episode.
Yes. Sorry, there was a train, and I was like, I can't hear you. This puts a lot of pressure on Julius to turn Fitzpatrick. Whoever Fitzpatrick is, I have no idea who Fitzpatrick is, but he needs to be turned by Julius.
This moment, we're like, because they turned to Julius like, well, Julius, you definitely got to turn Fitzpatrick. And Julius is like, yep, you got it. And in the moment, we're like, Julius is not going to turn Fitzpatrick because Julius is on Bond's side. Like our heroes in this moment don't know, but they're losing by 1 vote now because Julius is against them. Oh, no.
Julius would be great on Survivor. Like this is a fantastic Survivor swing vote move that he is doing the entire time. Because he does go right to Bond after meeting everybody upset. He's like, hey, I mean, like they brought in these 2 guys and 1 guy died, and so now we're at a tie. And if you want my vote, like you still get my vote, but I want some stuff. And so Bond's like, okay, you are now the head of litigation. And so it all comes down to this board meeting, which happens at the end of the resolution with the Chum Hum stuff.
Yeah.
And Will and
before this, Will and Diane see Julius with Bond. Yeah. And they're like, should we be worried about that? We're like, yeah. We're like, yes, you should be worried about that. Little did we know.
Well, and there's also like one of those ominous shots where it's like them looking out the window, looking out the door, and then like the camera going down the hallway of like, yes, you should be worried about this. And before going into the meeting, Will and Diane basically say in front of Alicia, in 10 minutes, Bond will run this firm or we will.
And it's almost like they forgot she was there because she looks at them like, what did you just say? And they're like, oh, like nothing.
They're like, good job on the Chum Hum stuff.
Forget we said that. Forget we said anything. Because they look at her like, oh, we forgot she was sitting there. Disregard that. Goodbye.
Yeah.
See ya.
So they head to the meeting. Alicia is like eagle-eyeing this meeting the entire time. Ends up meeting Viola by the elevators, and Viola says, hey, you know, they're not treating you well here. Come work for me. I'm very persistent. We'll see what happens there. This is not the only time this happens to Alicia's very good at her job, and she is noticed by many people. But it's time for the meeting. Diane starts with the gavel. This is so Christine Baranski. I am baffled at the start of this meeting, like why we are having this meeting. And Bond stands up and says, well, Diane, you know, we heard you were trying to steal clients and start a firm of your own. And so because of that, we need to dismiss you and censure you from being an equity partner. And I like that David in the background.
David Lee's just he's heckling. Yeah. He's like, all right, let's stop all the nonsense. Let's just vote. Let's go. We all know why we're here, basically. Everyone knows what's going on here. Let's just do the damn thing.
Yes. Yeah. And so they do the vote. And Julius does not raise his hand to dismiss or censure Diane. Like, right up there.
He looks at Julius like, oh, it too, Julius.
Yes.
It too.
Yes.
I guess Julius was able to turn Fitzpatrick. I don't know. Like, we never really got a resolution. Like, did Julius get Fitzpatrick?
I'm assuming so.
Assuming so, yeah.
Especially with Diane's little like fake point counting that she did. Well, in the scene, David Lee sees this as an opportunity to really go in for the kill and says, "Hey, I moved to get rid of Bond, and also I want his office for my second secretary." This is seconded by Will in this situation, and the vote goes the way that David wants it to, at least, and everybody else does, because Bond gets kicked out. David is going to get his office, and Will goes to sit in Bond's office while he's packing up, and no words are I did like when Bond left and was like, basically called Will son of a bitch or something like that. Yeah, and Will was like,
he You son of a bitch.
Was like,
Will
"Yep. Mhm. Yep.
Will goes to sit in Bond's office, like just with his arms crossed, like basking in his victory. Just like sitting there watching Bond get his stuff and huff out the door. No words spoken, like you said, just watching him like like I got you, MF, I got you. I thought that should have been Diane though. I thought Diane should have been the one to
Yeah.
go in Bond's office and watch him go. Like because she was the one he was really after. Like I thought that should have been Diane's seat to take.
Yes.
I did clock, when Julius doesn't raise his hand and Bond looks at him, Julius is just like, I just don't like you very much.
Yes.
It's like, wow. Like, you don't like him. You haven't even talked to him before this episode. How do you know you don't like him,
I
Julius?
mean, you haven't really got a chance to know each other because you've
Yeah.
never been in the same room together until today.
As far as we know. But
Yeah.
I loved the exit of Bond, who's just like basically almost with his tail tucked between his legs. He won't say anything to anyone. He's just grabbing his stuff. He's running out the door, like just trying to avoid the embarrassment that he just suffered.
Yes. Yeah. And Will sees Julius in the hallway and he's like, Julius says, nice play. Will says, nice execution. So I think there was some knowledge of what was going down between the two
Well,
of them,
yeah.
at least.
Well, this
And
was a double
then,
cross, right? This is like a
yeah,
double, triple cross, whatever you want to call it, because obviously, I don't know whose idea it was, because I'm sure Julius may have been like, "Hey, I can see this as an opportunity for me to get to head of litigation." Like maybe, like I wonder if he's like, I actually like they told Julius to go do this to Bond. They didn't probably put in the head of litigation part, but Julius is like, and also, I want to be head of litigation while you're in charge right now, and
I think,
like
yeah,
Bond does it. He's like, oh, by the way, he tells Will and Diane, like, I had to get Bond to head of litigation because it's more believable that way, right? Like, so you're gonna honor that, right? Like, oh, okay, good move, Julius, good move.
well, and I think he had to like get some assurances that like if this happened, he wouldn't be like demoted. Like he could keep it.
Mm.
Like it wasn't just like a play.
Yeah, I just wonder if he just slipped that in there without Will and Diane knowing. Like, oh, by the way, I'm also new head of litigation in case you hadn't heard.
Yeah. There is this moment between Diane and Will where they celebrate, they have a little drink, they cheers, they start dancing. They're like, we're the perfect couple, except for the sex. Ah. But they do laugh the same, Jason. Did you hear it this time? Did you hear the laugh and how it was similar? They do laugh the same.
They had a little bit of a synchronicity in their laugh. Yes, I did. I
Yes.
did notice that.
I
But
do
that,
like these two are, I mean, there's just such great characters and I love that they're teamed up.
listen, they're platonic couple goals, right? Like
Yeah.
they're great. And I thought this was a very, very like fun ending to the well, I don't even know if I don't know if we'll ever see Bond again. If we don't, it was a great ending to the Bond storyline. A storyline I thought at times was a little lackluster.
Mm.
I think that was a great ending though. The way that they really just kind of embarrassed him and all the up and down, all the politics that were going on, them fooling us into thinking that Julius was turning on Will and Diane. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. All right, we've got one more other section of things that happened in this episode. This is quite a packed episode. It did open with a debate for the state's attorney's office. So we had Peter, we had Childs, we had Wendy all up on the stage. Childs is basically really leaning into Wendy here, saying, like, yo, you broke the law. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, but you can't just say, oops, I broke the law. You broke the law. Peter is performing well by mentioning the young vote and also prison. Eli and Jeremy Strong, who I forget his character's name, but the pollster, they're loving it. They're eating this up. Everyone's super excited. Even though Peter did well in this debate, he does see this kind of as a defeat because Wendy didn't drop out and they really needed this to be a two-man or a two-person race. And Zach is overhearing this conversation that's happening between Peter, Eli, and Jeremy Strong in the kitchen, and he's like, okay, I gotta do
Well,
something.
Well, notably, he hears the fact about the nannies, and they mention Child's nanny, and they say, "Well, Child's nanny is from Sweden, and it's all above board, like it's all legal." And to this, Zach is like, "Huh, interesting," because we can see that Zach remembers, knows something. So, like, okay, what is this?
Yes.
What is little Encyclopedia Brown up to?
And is like, hey, do you still have those pictures from drama camp? And this
Hmm.
is all Becca needs to hear, man. She's like
Oh,
so excited. She's so
he's
elated.
ready.
She gets dressed in her best 50-year-old like suit I don't know why
Mhm.
they dress this teenage girl, like she's going to a board meeting or
I
going to
think
some.
I think it's to portray that Becca thinks she's more mature and than she is. Like she
Yeah,
wants to portray herself as this mature person, not a 17-year-old. She wants to portray herself as a real mature woman. I think that's part of what that is.
I think you're right. I think you're right. But every time I see it, I'm like, no, like, no.
Yeah.
But she happily shows up and is talking to Jackie and like schmoozing it up. She does bring the photos, and this is where Zach sees that the nanny, at least in this picture, wasn't Swedish. And the only way we know this, Jason, is because this nanny was black.
Blacks can't be from Sweden. That's
No,
impossible.
we can't
That can't
have
happen.
that can't happen. There's no such thing as immigration. That's never happened before.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah,
Back
that was actually interesting.
That was actually interesting. So with this information, Becca and Zach are like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta go tell Eli." So he goes. This scene was incredible. This was Alan Cumming, just again amazing. He they show Eli the pictures, and he's like, "Okay, cool." And the kids are like, "Why aren't you excited? Like, aren't you gonna like look into it?" And Becca's like, "No, because he doesn't trust me," and blah 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 blah. And to which Eli says, "That's interesting. See, I'm interested."
Yeah.
So it was very interesting in that situation. He excuses himself for a moment and goes to celebrate in the copy room, like, yeah, this is something. This is
Can I
something that
t-
we need.
can I tell you this moment is actually a big moment for the Reed household
Tell me, tell me.
because back in 2011 or whenever this was viewed, my wife and I were watching Good Wife every week, and Eli goes into the copy room. He does the little thing with his arm and the stomp, and me and my wife for years after that would imitate that in different situations. Like
It's awesome.
whenever whenever either of us were right, we'd be doing see, we do the little Eli thing. Like that was a big thing in our house for like a couple of years.
Oh,
And so
that's
like I
awesome.
watched it today. I reminded my wife, I was like, "Do you remember this?" She's like, "Oh yeah, like I totally remember that." I was like, "This is the episode. He did it in this episode." That was a really interesting moment. Like when I saw it, it's like, "Oh my god, he did the thing! He did the thing!"
That's so cool. I love that. That's cute. It is a thing. He does a thing in the, the copy room and comes back and tells the kids, like, "Hey, can you find out the name of the nanny? That would be helpful." And the kids are
This
like,
is
"Oh
so
yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah." And he leans back and says, "I am the smartest person I know."
I love Eli, and just the fact that he was trying to be so nonplussed in front of like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. You kids think you found something. Good on you, little kids." Blah blah blah. And then for him to actually go off and celebrate because this is huge, this is big, and then he'd be like, "Oh hey, so just wondering, like." You didn't give me the name of this person. Not that it matters too much. Like, do it, don't do it, whatever you want. Can you just get the name from me? Eli's great. Like, I love the characterization.
And he like the kids could not like eat this up any faster. They're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool. I'll go do that." So Becca does her best Becca-ing in the scene with Glenn Childs Jr. It's like really laying it into us, like, "You know what I like?" And all this stuff. And he's like, "I thought you liked the Zach kid." She's like, "What can I say? I like politician kids." And she references her bracelets. Do you remember this thing about
Yeah.
the bracelets?
I think I remember there was like different colors for different things you have done with different people, and
Yeah.
Becca got a lot of bracelets.
Yeah.
If we know
Yeah.
Becca, we know one thing about Becca. She got a lot of bracelets.
Well, if we she does, but I wonder if she has them because she earned them, quote unquote, or if she just has them to use them to get people to think that she earned them. I don't know. I could see it going either way.
I, I could see that, but from the moves Becca's been putting on Zach, not just this episode, but other episodes,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think she might have earned those bracelets.
Yeah. I'm with you. Glenn Jr. is like, "Yo, dad, like this girl that never talks to me was talking to me and talking to me about your Rita, our nanny from a few years ago." And I loved how Glenn Childs like picks up the phone when he hears the situation. He like snaps to the room, like Be quiet.
Hey,
Like,
yeah, everybody shut up.
this is important. This is important. Glenn Jr. did not tell Becca the name of the nanny at this point. So Glenn's like, okay, cool, gotta go. But Eli, this is all part of Eli's plan. So Eli has learned. We have seen him kind of evolve in his political strategy, at least in his political I gotchas,
Yeah.
because all he needed was to get Glenn Childs thinking that this was a scent that they were picking up, that this was what was going on. So he had kind of watched what was happening with Glenn Childs and saw that he was contacting this woman, getting her to like go away for a little bit and cover it up. And so they're really excited at that campaign because it's not, like was referenced before, it's not the crime, it's the cover up that really, really people care about when it comes to politics. At least they did
Ingenious.
back then.
Ingenious move by Eli. We talk about Survivor and who would do well on Survivor. This is
Yes.
like a Survivor plot.
Could you
This is great.
imagine like Eli and Julius on the same team or like on the same season? Oh,
Diabolical.
maybe we should do it anyway. Yes. So then with this information, Peter goes to visit Childs, and this is like a very mob bossy type
Mm-hmm.
of situation because Childs is sitting and is always like, "Oh, always loved this office. Like this was so
Mm-hmm.
good to me." And Childs is like, "Yeah, I know. Remember when I used to have that dartboard over there?" Childs is like, "Yeah, I kept the darts. Here's the thing. Like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here?" And Peter's like, "That's it. Like, you're out of the race." And he explains the whole nanny situation. And Childs is like, "Well, I didn't break the law." And he's like, "Yeah, but you were just on stage telling everyone you can't say, 'oops, my bad,' when you knew you did something wrong." And then again, this conversation, we had talked about it a little bit with Will and Alicia around like people who do things for good, because Childs is like, "I'm not just in this to get back at you, I'm in this to do something good." And Peter says, "You think you're the only person who wants to do good? Like everybody wants to do good." So I think it kind of ties that a little bit together, because in that case, because of my bias towards Peter, I'm like, yeah, Peter doesn't want to do anything good without getting something else from it. Like he's not altruistic in that way.
Yeah, it's weird because maybe the tables are turning a little bit, and maybe we're starting to turn the dial, turn the villain dial towards Will and not Peter in this moment. Peter's like, I actually
Yeah.
want to do good. Like, yes, I contracted sex workers, but I still want to do good for Chicago. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a changed man. Peter, or I mean, Childs, that's all he needed to resign from the race. He uses the usual, "I need to spend more time with my family." And while they're watching this, the kids, Becca and Zach, while they're watching this at home, Becca is making moves like
Ugh.
without consent, without any of this. Her hands are roaming into places.
She's making the move. She's not just making moves. She's making the move. She is sliding her hand down
Yeah,
Zach's chest into other areas down
into a
below,
region
into a region. I'm like, whoa,
in front of like in the family room, like
yeah.
in like out in
You
the
you
open.
you thought moving the computer out of the room would do something for Becca, but nope, it's not. She's still doing her nasty stuff right out in the open. And Jackie's like, "Do you kids want some chocolates?" And Becca's like, "Oh no, Jackie." She gone. All right, I'll get back to it. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, listen, Zach is just like, I don't know what's that. If I was Zach's age, I know what I'd be thinking. Like,
But I
but
I still can't like really tell what Zach's relationship with Becca is right now. I definitely know Becca's way more into Zach than Zach is into Becca, but I don't know if he's just like not into Becca or if he would actually like
what
entertain this.
what happened to
Especially
what was her name? Nika?
the other girlfriend, the black girlfriend.
Yeah, and you know what I found out after those episodes? We
What?
know Nika. We know who Nika is
From where?
from This Is Us. She was young Beth.
Oh, she was Beth.
Yeah, she was
Oh.
young Beth. But yeah, what happened to that girl? I feel like we're going to see that girl back because I feel like that those she was only in 2 episodes, but I feel like she's in more episodes. So I don't know what this Becca mess
Yeah,
is going to be because I mean I feel like at one point Zach and Becca were, you
they were a
know,
thing.
they were in it. Zach
They were.
was
There was a
in
point where
stuff.
we thought that Becca got pregnant by Zach and
And
she had
Zach
an
thought,
abortion.
and Zach was worried he might have gotten Becca pregnant. Like
Yeah.
he like that fear seemed legitimate on Zach's face of like, oh crap, did I get her pregnant? So we know they have done stuff.
Yes.
Uh, So I can't wait to see what the fallout is to all this, and if Becca is back in Zach's graces and back around Family Floric.
Yes. This whole time, speaking of family flork, Eli is kind of like, we can't tell Alicia about this because the kids can't be involved in the
Mhm.
campaign. But we do find out that Peter does find out how all of this plays out because he comes home and he's like, Zach, come here. Gives him a big hug and is like, you did it. You did it, buddy. It was all
That's
you.
that's not a good precedent to start. Like it's not a good like, hey, keep getting involved, my kid's son, and
Right?
things you are not mature enough to actually be doing. So I don't think it's a good example to set.
When you look at like the help that Zach offered his parents in this episode, it was like, sure, ma, I'll Google some things for you and tell you some things about this man versus I will also investigate this nanny and get someone's political downfall to happen.
Yeah,
So I think there is a difference in the parenting
yeah, for
styles.
sure. Alicia, because Eli is right to fear Alicia, because if Alicia knew that this was happening, Alicia would be pissed.
Yeah, for sure. And then this is like a secret that they have to keep from Alicia, which is what she's asked for not to happen anymore.
Definitely.
So I'll be interested to see if there's any fallout from that. Not that I'm cheering against Peter in any way, shape, or form, but
Oh yeah, no, definitely not.
mm-mm,
You no, that's
mm-mm,
unlike you,
mm-mm,
Marissa.
no. Mm-mm. Yeah,
Oh
so that
man.
was a good old episode 16.
Yeah.
I loved this episode. It had a lot of really good storylines all coming together and I feel like they all got equal weight in the way that they needed. Great performances by everyone. So, and I mean, yes, Julius and Bond were in the same room at the same time, but Jason, that will probably not happen again because Bond is
Yeah.
gone.
It'll
So
probably
I
be the first and last time. But listen, they did it and they made it count. Maybe they were like, listen, we don't want to give too much Julius Bond interaction because in episode 16, it's gonna go off between them. So we don't want to set this up too much. But it was just comical how it was just kept happening where Bond was in an episode that meant Julius can't be in it. Julius is in an episode that means Bond can't be in it.
yeah.
But they kind of made up for it in a way in this episode. So good on them,
Yeah.
I guess. Marissa, you want
Yeah.
to give the people all the info on where they're going to find you on these here internet streets?
Sure. Well, besides being
Do
here
you,
with you,
do you tell them how they can get their child to Google you and find where you are on the internet?
there's a surprisingly a not a lot. There are a lot of Marissa Garzas. Like I'm very always
And
kind of like I thought I was special. I thought it was
can you
me.
find Zachary? Can you find me Marissa Garza? Mom, there are a lot of Marissa Garzas. All right, try Marissa Garza, nerd, Chicago. Try that.
Yeah, there's
See
only
what you
one.
get. Yeah,
There's
there's
only
only one.
one. That's me. Yeah, so try that Google search, see what comes up.
No imagination at that.
See what you can find. But if that search does not serve you, you can find what I'm up to at it's me Marissa G. Com. I am trying to help people start podcasts these days. So if that's something that you're into, feel free to please join my email list. It's the best way to make sure that you get information straight from me because who knows what algorithms are doing these days. That said, I am posting here and there on different places, and links can all be found at it's me, marissag.com. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me in all sorts of places. If you insist on finding me on social media, you can do that on Blue Sky at JR33D. I don't post much, so you can find me podcasting on the Rob Hess Podcast Network over on the Love at First Sight feed. I am talking Murder First Sight with Asia Welch and sometimes with Mari Forth when she joins us. I'm also talking the most recent season of Love is Blind. We should be in the home stretch of that season when you hear this. So hear me, Asia, and Mary Kokowski's thoughts on Love is Blind over on the Love at First Sight feed. If that tickles your fancies, and also don't forget to go on the other side of this podcast and hear our Elsbeth coverage as that is happening. And we spoke a little bit of Marvel this episode coming up soon. The new season of Daredevil will be out and about, and I'll be talking about that with Sasha Joseph, also on We Know Scripted TV. So you can find me in all those places doing all the things. If any of that was what you like, I am the guy for you. So until next time, stay good.